Hello, everyone. Good morning. It's so wonderful to see everyone here for our second PD session of the school year on the theme of joy in the library. I'm Erin Miller from the Western Quebec School Board, and I'm pleased to welcome you to Stories and Storytelling in the High School Library. Before I continue, some really quick housekeeping. We will be dropping things into the chat during the session, but we've enabled the Q&A feature if you have any questions or comments throughout. Also, this session is being recorded, so if you'd prefer to turn your camera off, please feel free. So once again this morning, we gather from many different places across the province of Quebec. I myself am connecting from the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people, known as Gatineau. I believe in always sharing a resource with the land acknowledgement, and so before we jump into our session, I wanted to remind you all of Indigenous Canada, the online course offered through the University of Alberta. I've included the link to the course in a takeaway that will be available after today's session. Education can contribute to healing and decolonization, and this course is an important addition to the story of Canada from an Indigenous perspective. Now, going back a little ways to welcome us to our December session on Storytime in the elementary school library, Rafaela Dixon spoke about the importance of storytime. I thought it was a great way to start the day to focus us on our littles and to highlight some important points about how storytime can contribute to lifelong literacy. So when we started planning this session, I suggested doing something similar, but about our teenage patrons. It's a very different stage of life. They have different needs from their education and from their school library. So to begin today, we'll spend the next few minutes taking a look at adolescence. Now, I am certainly no expert on teenage physiology and brain development, but I am a librarian and I'm happy to do the research. And oh, the rabbit holes I went down for preparing for this quick presentation. And I want to underline that one word, quick, because we don't have long to look at something that is so incredibly complex. I'm not here to offer any answers, but rather to share some of the information and sources that I found in hopes that we can shake up some ideas we may have about teenagers, some of the stories we as a society have become accustomed to telling about them generation after generation, to remind ourselves that we came through this same stage of life. So maybe we can flip that script and approach our teenagers with some radical empathy. Now, for those of us who work with teenagers, believe me when I say you are not alone if you have ever felt frustrated or entirely baffled by interactions with them. I once came out of my office during an exam period when students were supposed to be studying in the library to find feet just wandering through the air. A student had decided to do a handstand in the middle of the space and was walking around on his hands right beside the computer desks. So when it comes to library books, I've heard, I never took that book out. Then it's been in my locker when that same book came back eventually. And Miss, what day is it today? More often than I can count. Then there are times when a student talks with you for 20 minutes about how much they love their mom and mom's women friends that they've grown up with. When one whispers in your ear that they'd like to talk to you next time about LGBTQ2+ books, or those who volunteer or just stop in to say hello and see how your March break was. We all contain multitudes, adults and teenagers alike. So what did I learn? Well, they're older than our elementary school students, obviously, and some may look like young adults, but that's not what they are. In so many ways, they are learning how to be and learning who they are. Our brains develop from the back to the front as we age, and adult and teen brains work very differently. As adults, we think and process information from our prefrontal cortex, which is here behind our forehead. This area is somewhat cruelly one of the last areas of our brain to develop, and it's responsible for skills like planning, prioritizing, making good decisions. Teens, on the other hand, process information with the amygdala, which is further back in the brain. It's a part of the emotional center. It's important to recognize that the teenage brain is not a defective adult brain. Their brains are busy, just not with the same things as ours. And all that before we even start talking about puberty, another distinct phase of life, and if I remember correctly, somewhat tumultuous. They have questions, and their newly developed self consciousness doesn't always remind them to go to the library for answers. Their bodies are changing in ways they have no control over. All of a sudden, their worlds include things like growth spurts, voice changes, body odor, body hair, their period, developing breasts, and needing a bra, or maybe they prefer a binder. They're interested in other people, what other people think of them. They start noticing attraction. They may be interested or curious about relationships and sex, or they might not. And while all of it is completely normal and nothing to be ashamed of, well, I'm sure you all remember how it was when we were trying to process all that through our emotionally centered brains. Today's session is about stories and storytelling in the high school library. So considering this quick introduction to who our teens are and some of what is shaping their worlds, their moods, their actions, remember that we had no time to even mention environmental factors and technology, never mind the state of the world that they will inherit. I want to challenge us all to think about the stories we're telling in our libraries. What story does your collection tell? Your programming. What story do you want to tell as you work to make space for them? And now it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Joan Harrison, a librarian from the Sacred Heart School of Montreal, to share one of her library stories. Thank you.
So I'm going to talk about my experience reading a book to high schoolers. I read the book Refugee. Back in 2018, 2019, I read it to Sec 1 and Sec 2, grade 7 and 8 students. For those of you who aren't familiar with the book, it's a story of three 12-year-olds who have to flee their homes with their families. And it's set in different time periods. So Joseph is in 1938, fleeing from Berlin, Germany. Isabel in 1994, fleeing from Havana, Cuba, and Mahmoud in 2015, fleeing from Aleppo, Syria. I saw the students one day on 8 in their general instruction class, and I split the class with a teacher so that I didn't have the whole grade. And they just came to the library. I let them sit where they were comfortable and they could put their heads down and just ask them to listen quietly. I'm going to read for you. So if you would like the experience yourself, you could try putting your head down, close your eyes, and just imagine you're sitting in the library listening to me read. What I'm going to do is give a little précis of each chapter. I want to read the first 3 chapters because it's each of the individuals, but I won't read the whole chapter. So I'll do a little précis and then I'll read the end of each chapter. So the first chapter is about Joseph in Berlin in Germany in 1938. Joseph Landau and his sister have been woken by noises in their house. Nazi soldiers in brown shirts have trashed their apartment and they took his father, Aaron Landau. In the days to come, Joseph learned that his family wasn't the only one the Nazis had attacked that night. Other Jewish homes and businesses and synagogues were destroyed all over Germany, and tens of thousands of Jewish men were arrested and sent to concentration camps. They called it Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. The Nazis hadn't said it with words, but the message was clear. Joseph and his family weren't wanted in Germany anymore, but Joseph and his mother and sister weren't going anywhere. Not yet, not without Joseph's father. Mama spent weeks going from one government office to another, trying to find out where her husband was and how to get him back. Nobody would tell her anything, and Joseph began to despair that he would never see his father again. And then, 6 months after he'd been taken away, they got a telegram from Papa. He'd been released from a concentration camp called Dachau, but only on condition that he leave the country within 14 days. Joseph didn't want to leave. Germany was his home. Where would they go? How would they live? But the Nazis had told them to get out of Germany twice now, and the Landau family wasn't going to wait around to see what the Nazis would do next. And chapter 2 is about Isabel, just outside of Havana in Cuba in 1994. Food is scarce. Isabel has been feeding a stray cat a few beans, not much more than she ate that day. Her neighbors are secretly building a boat to flee illegally to the United States. If caught, Castro will throw them in jail. Isabel goes with her father and grandfather into the city, where they will line up for food, and she will play her trumpet for money. She never did make much, not because she wasn't good. As her mother liked to say, Isabel could play the storm clouds from the sky. People often stopped to listen to her and clap and tap their feet. But the only people who could afford to give her pesos were the tourists, visitors from Canada or Europe or Mexico. Ever since the Soviet Union had collapsed, the only currency most Cubans had were the booklets you got stamped when you went to pick up your food rations from the store. And food ration booklets were pretty worthless anyway. There wasn't enough food to go around, whether you had a booklet or not. Isabel caught up with her father and grandfather, then parted ways with them on the Malecon, the broad road that curved along the seawall on Havana Harbor. On one side of the road were blocks of green and yellow and pink and baby blue homes and shops. The paint was peeling, and the buildings were old and weathered, but they still looked grand to Isabel. She stood on the wide promenade, where it seemed all of Havana was on display. Mothers carried babies in slings, couples kissed under palm trees, buskers played rumbas on guitars and drums. Boys took turns diving into the sea. Tourists took pictures. It was Isabel's favorite place in the whole city. Isabel tossed an old ball cap on the ground on the off chance that one of the tourists actually had a peso to spare. She lifted the trumpet to her lips. As she blew, her fingers tapped out the notes she knew by heart. It was a salsa tune she liked to play, but this time she listened past the music, past the noise of the cars and the trucks on the Malecon, past the people talking as they walked by, past the crash of the waves against the seawall behind her. Isabel was listening for the clave underneath the music, the mysterious hidden beat Cuban music, the mysterious hidden beat inside Cuban music that everybody seemed to hear except her. An irregular rhythm that lay over top of the regular beat, like a heartbeat beneath the skin. Try as she might, she had never heard it, never felt it. She listened now, intently, trying to hear the heartbeat of Cuba in her own music. What she heard instead was the sound of breaking glass. That's the end of the second chapter. And then the third chapter is about Mahmoud in Aleppo, Syria, in 2015. Mahmoud and his younger brother are making their way home from school, trying not to get noticed by the Syrian army or rebels. They take a different route every day, using bombed-out buildings to shelter from artillery shells or barrel bombs. They witness some boys bullying someone for a loaf of bread, but don't intervene. Mahmoud, who is Sunni, had tried to help his Shia friend Khalid when bullies were picking on him. Here's from the book. From that day forward, Mahmoud and Khalid were marked. The two older boys became Mahmoud's and Khalid's own personal bullies, delivering repeated beatdowns between classes after school. And that's when Mahmoud and Khalid had learned how valuable it was to be invisible. Mahmoud stayed in his classroom all day, never going to the bathroom or the playground. Khalid never answered another question in class, not even when the teacher called on him directly. If the bullies didn't notice you, then they didn't hit you. That's when Mahmoud had realized that together he and Khalid were bigger targets. Alone, it was easier to be invisible. It was nothing they ever said to each other, just something they came to understand. And within a year, they had drifted apart, not even speaking to each other as they passed in the hall. A year after that, Khalid had died in an airstrike anyway. It was better not to have friends in Syria in 2015. Mahmoud watched as these two boys attacked the boy with the bread, a boy he didn't even know. He felt the stirrings of indignation, of anger, of sympathy. His breath came quick and deep, and his hands clenched into fists. I should do something, he whispered. But he knew better. Head down, hoodie up, eyes on the ground. The trick was to be invisible, blend in, disappear. Mahmoud took his younger brother by the hand, turned around, and found a different way home. So you can see how each chapter ends a little bit on a cliffhanger. The students were really anxious to see what was going to happen next. Because I was only seeing them once every 8 days, we might read a chapter or two, and then I wouldn't see them for 8 days. So I would keep track on a whiteboard of the 3 paths, and I'd write down where they had traveled to, because they end up moving between place to place. And I'd write the page we were on and take a picture of that for the next visit. Excuse me. I also used Google My Maps, where you can put your own pinpoints on a map so that we could follow their paths on the map, and gave them different colors. And also to see pictures of Aleppo before and after. When I was reading the story, it was very much in the news, but all we were seeing were the bombed out buildings and the destruction. And I wanted them to see the hotels, malls, restaurants that were there before. Overall, the students were really engaged, even if they looked like they were sleeping. Some even asked to come sit closer so they could follow along better. And we didn't finish the book, but that wasn't a bad thing in the end. A lot of students asked to read it afterwards, and we had several copies. I would tell them just before we were finished that the book does end with those 3 stories overlapping, even though they're in different time periods. So it's something they look forward to finding out by the end of the story. So overall, it was a wonderful experience, and I would do it again in a heartbeat, given the opportunity. That's it for me. I'm going to move along. So Julian Taylor and Sarah Marquez from the English Montreal School Board and Aaron Miller from the Western Quebec School Board are up next with Roll for Literacy, an introduction to tabletop role-playing games in the school library.
Thank you, Joan. Now, allow me to set the scene as our story begins. You are standing in the middle of your library. The morning sun is streaming through the windows. Your eyes move around the space, stopping to take in the bookshelves, the tables, your displays, your to-do pile, because we all have at least one. That familiar smell of books hangs in the air. You've struggled hard to get here. You did your own schooling. You won the job. You run this library. The students will be here soon. A quick glance at the clock shows you it's almost time for that first bell of the day. They are coming. So, adventurer, what wonders will you conjure for them today? What quests will you aid them in? What riddles will you help them to solve? These are questions for the ages, but it's your turn to answer. What would you like to do? Well, if you ask us, we'd tell you to give tabletop role-playing games a try. And our mission over the next 20 minutes or so is to offer the briefest of introductions to the richly creative, exciting, and expansive world of Dungeons and Dragons. Julian?
Thank you for that epic level introduction. I appreciate that. One of the main reasons that we decided to focus on Dungeons and Dragons in this is that it has a huge brand power. And as my companions are going to be talking about later, actually, we can kind of capitalize that in order to get the things. But what we're talking about are useful in all role-playing games. So first, I'm going to start by saying that, you know what? This is more than just having fun. Fun is important, but it's more than that. Go ahead, sir. We're actually going to be learning valuable skills through play, and these things directly connect to the mission of schools in Quebec and many of the subjects that are actually taught in our schools. And you've probably heard the term of learning through play, which is a huge part, of course, of the kindergarten curriculum in our schools. It's like, yeah, it's basically babysitting. Actually, no, it's not. They're teaching the students, the young people, how to do things by playing games that help them be more successful in school and in life. And of course, the concept of gamification, of taking an educational system and trying to make a game out of it so that it's more fun, so people are more likely to remember it. And what I'm going to be saying over the next few minutes, I'm summarizing a lot of things very quickly. These slides will be available to you. I'm going to be going through them very quickly because I want you to have access to them later, but I'm not going to dwell on them because there is a lot of huge connections between playing tabletop role-playing games and of course the QEP. So in that case, please go ahead. All right, what is the school's mission? There is actually a mission for schools in Quebec. If you go through the QEP, you will find that it is, to provide instruction in a knowledge-based world, to socialize students in a holistic world, and the last one, to provide qualifications in a changing world. Now, the reason those two are highlighted, or rather have arrows pointing to them, is that role-playing games fit very well onto those two specifically. The idea of socializing students in a world, well, you have a community activity taking place in a library. Students are learning how to problem solve, work together, bond, develop friendships, and it's helping them to socialize. And the second one there, provide qualifications changing worlds. Well, that's the next few slides, so I'll explain that. So go ahead. All right, so where does it fit? It fits very easily into these subjects. This is not exhaustive, but go ahead. Under the QP, the basic idea here is we're not learning content, it's how to do things. So you're developing competencies that will allow them to go in real life. Having fun, as I kind of mentioned before, it's going to be a good way to get them. And a lot of our students who play role-playing games, when they're in the classrooms, already have a leg up because they've experienced a lot of these things that most students haven't before. All right, this please take a look at later when you have time, but a big part of the competencies in drama is imagining characters and using your voice and your body action in order to try to communicate different ideas. You do that in role-playing games all the time. Next. These are some of the things specifically looking for when they're grading. Next. ELA, FSL, FLE. I didn't focus too much on that because I think a lot of those connections are very clear for us. But one of the big things I want to mention is, they're also expected to learn different types of reading through information sources, not just novels. And if I can give like a real world example, this is one of the main rule books. And I gave this to a sec, well, more precise actually, my stepson, in sec 1. And he devoured this thing, and you can probably see that there are a number of post-its throughout of things that were important to him, so he can go back and refer to them. He's reading through all these heavy texts. Then when he's looking at these like textbooks in his classroom, it's not as intimidating because he already has a positive experience with something like this. Go ahead. Take a look at this one later as well if you want, in terms of actually drama in English. That's okay. Next. One of the other big things in this is in these role-playing games, students are constantly it's not students, I should say the players, who of course are also our students, are constantly being exposed to different types of charts, tables, and graphs. These are things that are constantly going to be used in their textbooks. So for instance, we have a quick little chart here saying like, okay, what are the different types of starting classes, different types of characters you can play, and how much money do they start with? Well, right there we have a very easy, quick comparison as to who has more money than others, which of course kind of makes it perhaps might influence much of a character you want to build. And then the second one here is, okay, now that we've decided we want to be paladin, we can, using simple math, figuring out how much gold pieces that person is going to be because of what is listed there. If rolling 5 4-sided dice, and which look like these little pyramids, and then multiplying that result by 10. Next. Okay, so say your character has all of this money. That's a lot of like gold. In the everyday life, people don't use gold that much. But here's another chart that they can use in order to get practice with simple math and trying to figure out relative values. And of course, once again, the idea of going down one side across the top, trying to figure out where the information they want in that chart. Yeah, go ahead. That's something that's very, very valuable in all of the subjects, whether it be science and tech, math, history and geography. You're going to see charts like that all the time. This is a very complicated one. After a while, students are very, very comfortable dealing with complicated things like this. Next, Sarah. And of course, I'm realizing the time. I'm just going to skip through this, but basically, there's a huge amount of probability that ends up being used in these games, and students, when they're exposing in the classroom, are going to be a lot much more comfortable with it because they've been playing with it already. So go ahead and skip this over. I'll let people refer to that back to their own time. Maps, huge importance. Maps, comparative maps in geography and history. There are maps everywhere in these books, whether it be to explain the world or for characters, players to create their own maps. Go ahead. So like, for instance, these are two different maps, and you can see standard things we use, like there's a compass, rose in the corner, saying which way is north. There's a legend. One is more geographical. The other one is production of agricultural products. Sorry, I should say livestock. These are things that are kind of like almost setting the stage for our students in their classroom. Go ahead. And when you have time, definitely look into the cross-curricular competencies. These are things that are looked at in pretty much all of the disciplines. And those four there, those concepts are constantly being reinforced by playing role-playing games. So unless there's anything else, I think we're on to the next section.
All right, so today I'm going to be talking about linking D&D to your library collection, because when the D&Ders are in, you can push books on them and get them reading. So I'm going to be giving you recommendations for different books, and I, of course, have to give a shout out to the OG, Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. You might have heard of the series, maybe. It had such a big influence on the fantasy genre and, of course, D&D. So most of you probably already have this in your library. If not, come on. So today I'm going to be giving you a short, brief preview of some of our recommendations, but I have a handy takeaway with even more books to recommend, and I highly encourage you to look through it. So first off, fantasy. As you might have noticed, D&D has a whole slew of books with their branding and in their worlds they created. So the first one I have to reference is The Crystal Shard by R.A. Salvatore. It's the first book in the Icewind Dale trilogy, which is part of a larger series called The Legend of Dresset, which has 39 books. So if you get kids hooked on this series, you're good for a while. And it has a lot of high combat and plenty of D&D tropes that people enjoy and love. And so yeah, highly recommended. Next up is Spelljammer Memories Wake. It's a standalone novel, so not as long. And it's part of the Spelljammer world, which is sci-fi in space. And this story has swashbuckling pirate adventures. And it's great for people who are just starting with D&D because it's very explanatory, but not in an exhaustive way. It's very naturally woven into the story. And if you want to choose a fantasy book that is like D&D but doesn't have the D&D branding, I highly recommend The Legend of Podkin One Ear by Kieran Larwood. This series has 6 books. It's ideal for cycle 1, and the narrator is a mysterious traveling bard, and it's about a legendary rabbit warrior with one ear seeking vengeance. And there's plenty of stories within stories. It's a really great series. Next up, we have graphic novels. Oh my God, D&Ders love comics. So again, look at my list. The first one I'm going to recommend is Buzzing by Samuel Sassen. It's about a boy struggling with OCD that manifests with bees. And he uses D&D as an outlet and to make friends and process what's going around him. It's a really stunning visual graphic novel. Highly recommend, and great for Sec 1s, but it'll appeal to the older students as well. Next up, also by Samuel Satten, Side Quest, a visual history of role-playing games. It's illustrated by Steens. This is a great history, and it's in-depth, beautiful artwork. And it also includes mini adventures in there as well to be amusing. And it discusses the sexism, racism, and discrimination that is found in RPG games and how it's being combated with newer RPGs and the community. And lastly, you may have seen this on your Netflix queue, Delicious Dungeon by Ryoko Quay. It is a complete manga series, which I love, 14 books in total. And it's about adventurers trying to rescue their friends in a dungeon, but in order to survive, they must eat the monsters they encounter. Next up, we have romance, which is really booming. If you step into a bookstore, you will see D&D romance. So the first book is The No Girlfriend Rule. Basically, throughout the story, an anxious girl gains confidence through a D&D-esque game. She originally starts playing because she wants to get closer to her BF, but his group has a no girlfriends rule, so she joins an all-girl group and starts developing feelings for another player. Next, we have Reggie and Delilah's Year of Falling by Elise Bryant. This is where a D&Der and a punk rocker who are nerdy and shy fall in love, and also, self-growth and all that. And the great thing about this book is D&Der, he writes online essays about the colonialism and racism that can be found in D&D. And lastly, Losing Hit Points by Christopher Malk, who is Canadian, is about two ex-friends romantically reconnecting over a D&D campaign. It's pure queer joy, nerd edition, and it explores what it's like being non-binary and transgendered. It's also a high-low novel, so if you have struggling or reluctant readers, this can be a great choice. Next, we have alternate RPGs. So if you don't want to do D&D, you have options. First up is Oz by Andrew Cobb. This one uses D&D mechanics, but it's a really awesome book with amazing illustrations. It's D&D set in the land of Oz. And it goes into detailed, stunning maps, illustrations, I may have said that. He also has books for Neverland and Wonderland. Okay, I'm going to speed things up. Next up is Heavy Thunder Mouse Metal, the RPG of mice and their motorcycle clubs. This one is a self-contained book game, and the title kind of explains what it's about. And lastly, I'm going to recommend the Ultimate Micro RPG book, 40 fast, easy, and fun tabletop games. They are very easy and detailed instructions, and they're very inviting to people who might be new to RPGs. It's part of the Ultimate Role-Playing Game series, where they have books telling you how to be creative with your role-playing and how to be a good DM and how to socialize properly when playing RPGs. That is it for now. Check out the list.
So when we first sat down to start planning this session, we all got very excited. And you may have noticed some of that coming through already. This is a huge topic. We understand we're throwing a lot at you. There is an example coming up, but at this point, you may be thinking, so what do I do? How does this work in a library setting? And we'll go into that next. Now, Sarah found a wonderful thing the other day. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. First, we're going to talk about the practicalities. We must talk about the practicalities. We've looked at the connections to the QEP and all of those wonderful things, but then you really do need to think about how you want to do this in your library. So for example, some questions here to use as a guiding light. Do you have room for a group to play in the library? So this is really about the literal space you have available. Do you have long tables? Do you mind if students move shorter tables together? You can get solo role-playing games, and that's wonderful. They're easier to accommodate in terms of space. But a basic campaign, the basic campaign that comes with the D&D Essentials kit is for 2 to 6 players. So paying attention to that sort of thing is important. Next up, is your library available for this kind of gameplay? Is talking aloud, or do you have, does it have to be a silent space? Do you have study rooms or group rooms available where students could take their game so they're not bothering anyone else? And it's important to think about these things because it's really not fair of us to bring in all of these really exciting resources we can get. You can get the books, you can get the dice. There's more on that just coming up. And then only to say to them, well, but you can't use it in the library, right? That's one of the things you need to think about. It doesn't necessarily have to be a loud and boisterous thing, but there is talking involved. There's dice rolling. And believe it or not, it can get quite exciting. So the third question there, if it's not at lunch, then do you have options or the capacity for a club before or after school? And that's going to depend on many different things. It's going to depend on your schedule. That first and foremost, your own schedule and hours. Do you have the capacity for that? What's the school schedule, the bus schedule, and travel times for your students? Depending on what your setup is, it's not going to work for everyone, but for those who it might work for, it could work really well as an after school or before school club. Number 4 there, if your library isn't really an option for the actual gameplay, is there someone you could collaborate with to create a club that meets outside the library? a student life animator, a technician, a teacher, someone who could take the reins and manage the time for the students, and you can work with them to get them the resources that they need. You could support their work with new books and new resources. Number 5 there, will you allow students to borrow these books? And what about the extras? The extras are things like the game dice. Do you have any maps that you're going to have available to them? That sort of thing. Are they going to be able to take those books out? Or will you have them for in-library use only? So the manual that Julian showed, the D&D player manual, the most recent edition of that book is $70. So it's not inexpensive. At my library, it has a bright pink label on it that says in library use only. And so far that's worked out really well. I have a couple grade 7 and 8 students who come in every day at recess and every day at lunch. At recess, they come in to work on what they can get done in the 10 minutes they have in terms of character or class, et cetera, et cetera. And then they bring their campaign into the library at lunch. It's wonderful to see. And while I've mentioned a lot of these extras, the dice, the maps, in some cases you can get whole gaming tables that have sets built in, and there's dice trays, and it's, when Julian said it has brand power, Dungeons and Dragons specifically, that is very true. It's celebrating its 50th year. It's popular. You do not need all of those things to get started. To get started, all you need to do, actually, go ahead, Sarah, is go to the Wizards of the Coast website. As Julian mentioned, these slides will be available to you so that you can go through everything in a little bit more at your own pace. But here, they have educator resources and things that are available to ship to you for free. So we went through it. We made sure it's available not just in the US, but in Canada as well. And both Julian and I have already filled out our forms and have been approved to get D&D educator kits shipped to us in 2025 for the fall when their new kits are ready. But if you really want to get going before that, the next 2 slides detail a couple of kits. There's the starter set, which is a bit of a smaller adventure kit. And then next is the essentials kit. Same sort of thing, the basics, but a little bit more complex. Both of these kits are available to you through Paragraph and Babar, probably other accredited bookstores as well, if you're interested in getting started before the beginning of next school year. Now, if we were all in person, this would be the point where we say, all right, you all got character sheets in front of you and dice in a jar beside you, you get to play now. But since we're stuck at home or in our offices, we decided we would show you a little bit of what a role-playing game looks like. So Julian, if you want to go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be taking you through an example of how a role-playing game actually functions. So my role here is as the dungeon master, which is basically like the narrator or the person who controls the secondary characters and all the environments and presents it to the players who have a chance to interact, and we try to co-develop how things go forward.
Hello, so today I'm going to be playing Bree Good Barrel, but everyone calls my character Cheesy. She is a Lightfoot halfling and a rogue.
Today I'm going to be playing Fenelon, the hill dwarf. I am a cleric.
The adventure we're playing today actually comes out of the one of the starter sets that Erin was mentioning earlier today, and we're actually going through the Lost Mine of Phandelver. Our 2 characters have they're looking for work. They're in the city of Neverwinter, and as always for adventurers, there is work to be found if you're up to a little bit of excitement. So thankfully, Cheesy's aunt has some contacts in this town, including one dwarf, actually, by the name of Grundon Rockseeker. At the appointed hour, you arrive at his import-export business, and it's very clear to find, despite all the bustling noises and horses passing and wagons and all the other loud assortments of noises you would find in a pretty large city like this, you're able to pick him out because he's easily the dwarf with the nicest clothes, and everybody's immediately deferring to him.
That's him.
Hi there. How's it going?
Hello there, Halfling. What can I do for you? I'm in a bit of a hurry right now. There's something I can do for you.
So my Auntie Q has said you have a job for us. Yes, we're just trying to find some honest work.
Excellent. Well, there's definitely there's a lot for that. It's a very busy time right now. I'd be willing to pay, because of course I know your aunt, so I know you're trustworthy in this. She's never let me down before. Say 25 gold each. Each. It's a lot of money, really. 25 gold each if you would take the two of you would take one of these other wagons tomorrow.
Well, that's a fair offer for most. So I'd like to roll persuasion for this.
Yeah, sure. So you'd be rolling your charisma. Well, sorry, you're going to roll 20-sided die, which, because Sarah doesn't have dice, unfortunately, today, I'll be rolling for her. But you're going to take whatever levels you have in the skill persuasion and add that to whatever your bonus is for charisma. He has an emotional attachment to you, and you can tell he's in a bit of a rush right now. He's not really entirely sure how things are going to go, so he's like, all right, fine. So I'm actually going to give you a positive modifier of +5 for you. So, which is good because I only rolled a 4. But with your 6 and the extra 5, that's 15. That is enough to convince him. He's willing to go along with it. And Morris goes, all right, but only because I like your Auntie Q so much. You see something up ahead, blocking the trail in front of your wagon. You've been on the Tribor, and I'm actually reading this now as a prepared section out of the adventure supplement that we have here. You've been on Tribor Trail for about half a day. As you come around the bend, you spot 2 dead horses sprawled about 50 feet ahead of you, blocking the path. Each has several black feathered arrows sticking out of it. The woods press close to the trail here with a steep embankment and dense thickets on either side. These goblins, green-skinned, short creatures, messy looking. They're both wearing tattered clothing, carrying short swords. They jump out of behind some trees and charge towards you. Now we're going to roll for initiative. So this now would be a 20-sided die. Erin, you have your own dice, so I'll let you take care of that. Sarah, do you have any bonuses for initiative?
Yes, I have a +3.
Okay, so for you, your initiative value is going to be 4 + 3, so 7.
Initiative -1, but I rolled a 15.
Okay, so even though you're slowed down by the heavier armor you're wearing, you still managed to get ahead of her.
I can actually throw a hand axe up to 20 feet, so I would like to take the one in my right hand, reach back, and chuck it at the goblin. Another 15.
Okay, that with their armor class, that is enough to hit. So you have a good solid hit there. So now you roll your damage.
1d6 + 2 slashing. So that's 5 + 2, 7.
I was wondering if the two of you, if each of you could rather roll wisdom perception.
So I rolled a 14 + 3 + 3, so 20.
Okay, very good. Sarah, you rolled. Let me see. We'll take the purple die for you. A 2. And what kind of bonuses are you looking at?
0.
Okay, so you're like,
for both.
Clean off the sword. You're kind of focused on that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, your dwarven companion is like, GC, you might want to look at this.
And welcome back, everyone. Today, I am here as your moderator for this panel discussion on how we're connecting to teens in our school libraries across the province. We wanted to have this panel discussion to really take a deep dive and have a good talk about what's happening in our libraries, what successes we've been having, what challenges we've been having in our school libraries, and how we're connecting teens to stories and storytelling in our school libraries at the high school level. And to do this, we have three fabulous panelists. I'm so happy they all agreed to join me today. And our first question is going to be, please introduce yourself. What are your school libraries like? Who are your students? And what time do you have in your libraries? We're going to start off with Judith Munger. Welcome, Judith. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Judith. I'm at Alexander Galt Regional High School Library. We have a population of 850 students, more or less. We have mostly a rural community. So like this is why the library is so important, to make them aware of what's happening in the world and to provide services that they might not have in their small town. Galt is kind of a small town, and the library is downtown. This is where everything happens. We're the cool place to be in the school. And I identify really like as an ally. I always wear my pin. I'm taking it out now so that you can see it. But I also wear a diversity bracelet because not just LGBTQ+, but also diversity in culture, religion. If you're vegetarian, you eat beef, you ate dogs, but you love cats, we don't care. When you set foot in the library, it's a living space, it's a respectful place, and it's the library I would have wanted when I was a teenager. I don't want to pass my time, so like, because I can talk for a long time, and we're open. And this is the only place in school that is always open from 8:30 to 4. So there's always a place for students they can come to. And when you're banned from the library, you're pretty much miserable because we do so much things, so many activities that you're missing out on a lot of things. So I'm really proud of our library. This is really a good place to be. This is really, really a good place to be.
Thank you, Judith. Next, we're going to go all the way up to Chibougamau, where Brandy Wiggins is sitting in her library. Hi, Brandy.
Hi, thank you for asking me to do this. I was very, very nervous, but I'm happy to participate. Like Chelsea said, I live up in Chibougamau, Quebec, and well, obviously Quebec, but we're in the EUSG. We're a unique school in the sense that we're a small. We have 196 students. There's only 70 students in the high school level, and we're a small community. English community in a French town surrounded by Indigenous communities. So we have a 75% population of Indigenous kids that come to our school, even though there are schools out on their communities. And we've gone from a closet upstairs in the high school level that was just literally a hallway sort of with books on either side, to a really big, beautiful space that we did a renovation in the school in 2013, and then have just had another extension built onto our school with a gym and 6 new classes. So the library, like in most schools, is the heart of the school, and it's right in the admin area. So it's kind of the place that people come and hang out and wait to go see the office and stuff. So it's a pretty lively place.
You really are up in Chibougamau, one of the gems in the crown of school libraries for the CQSB, and I'm happy you're here, Brandy. And you're a K-12 school. I don't know if you mentioned that,
yep,
but that's
we're K4 to grade 11. Yeah.
Excellent. Welcome. And we also have Laura Wolf here, and Laura's in Laval, and you'll be impressed when you hear how many students she looks after.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. So yes, I work at a high school called Laval Senior Academy. This is a suburban school just north of Montreal on the island of Laval. But Laval is very well developed. If you hate the traffic in Montreal, you would probably hate driving in Laval. It really is more urban. It feels more urban than suburban. It's the only English high school in Laval. It's a senior high school, so we only have secondary 3 to 5, grade 9 to 11, and we have about 1,300 students in grades 9 to 11. So it It is a very big school. My library used to be open full time. I was there 5 days a week from 8 to 4. Unfortunately, unfortunately, I was pulled out 2 days a week to work for the school board as support for our library staff and all the other schools in our school board. And the downside to that is that the library is closed when I'm not there. There is someone who works with me about 10 and a half hours a week, and she does cover a few of the hours on those days that I'm not in, so we can have the library open a little bit. It is a very big library. It can fit well over 100 kids in there. It is huge. It is in the center of the school. It is a beautiful big library. The downside of that is that when I'm at the other end of the library shelving books and the phone rings, I have to jog to the front of the library to get to the phone in time. But it really is, it's the center of the school. The kids come all the time. We're open in the morning, we're open at recess, we're open at lunch, not really after school because of my hours, but it is a place that all the students love to come and use.
Thank you, Laura. So you're getting a lot of steps in your day. That's good to hear.
You should get
So
those wheelie shoes.
We're going to start off our discussion at looking how we create the conditions in our libraries to help encourage students to read and connect with stories. I often hear from teachers that students seem lost in the library. They don't know how to pick the just right books for them. They're not very good at sticking with a book, or they have to go through many to find a book that they'll enjoy and be able to connect with. So how do you create the conditions in your libraries to help guide students to books that they'll want to read? And how can we as library staff help students even articulate what they're interested in and bring them out of their shells and feel welcome? Let's start with Laura.
So I think I have to start by saying that it is hard to get kids to read in high school. My students don't want to read, so I do my very best to make it easier for them to find what they're looking for. And I think one of the biggest things that we did in our library is to genreify. And it started before me, the librarian who was there before me. I've been there about 6 years. And she went through the work of identifying the genre of every single book in the library. And every single book got a genre sticker on it. But she left it in alphabetical order, author alphabetical order. So when a student comes to me and says, do you have a romance book? At the beginning, when I started, I would have to say, well, they're a little bit here and there. They're by author. You just have to look for the sticker. A couple of years ago, I took every single book off the shelves and I calculated space and I genreified my library. All the romances together, all the horror is together, all the historical fiction is together. And that way, when a student comes to me and they need a book, I can ask them, well, what do you like? What do you like to read? And it's a little bit easier to direct them. And even if they're independent, I have good signage. They can go to the section with the books that might interest them more. Those non-readers will always be non-readers. I try to ask them what they're interested in. I try to recommend the books. My shelves are very full. That I have to say, I worked really hard on weeding the library. I had books there going back to the 1950s. I'm trying to make my shelves less full so I can do that dynamic shelving where I can front face the books. As I was weeding, I was finding some really beautiful books that had never been borrowed. I need to pull them out. I need to front face them. I have displays. I have my new book displays. I have my monthly thematic displays. But on the shelves, it's very overwhelming when you just see spines. So I need to clean up those shelves a little bit more so I can put books sort of front facing for the kids to discover. I also try to read a lot of the books. It's hard. I have a big budget. I buy a lot of books. And to be honest, I don't really love the YA books, but it's so important to read the books. So I read them, and that way when kids do come to me and they do want a recommendation, I can give them recommendations and I can talk to them about what I've been reading.
So book talking on the spot to try to get them to connect with the character in a book. Brandy, would you like to respond?
I find that one of the easiest things for me to do, because I enjoy reading adult, not those kind of adult books, but adult books that I have a hard time reading YA consistently because I get bored with it. So what I like to do is go on to either Goodreads or Storygraph or something and just kind of read the summary of what other people are saying about the book. So then I don't have to read the whole thing, but at least I have something to suggest to the kids when they do come in. One thing that really works for me and what I say to kids in high school specifically when they leave is if they take a book, then I'll say to them, let me know if you like it. I read that one, or I had nobody's taken that one out yet, and I would really like to know what you think of it. And then please tell your friends if you do like it. So a couple of years ago, up on the window into the library, I've put just a one pager laminated sheet that says, want to give a book rec to a friend, and I leave a post-it note thing there with a pen, and if they have to recommend it or they like it, then they just stick it up. They don't need to write a summary, because sometimes when I try to tell them, write a little review or something, they're like, really, you're going to make me write more? So they'll just put up a title up there, and sometimes I see kids actually looking at it. So the little peekaboo bookmarks and stuff like that really, really help. But I've asked Chelsea to come up. She's in May, because I would really, really like to genreify the library. I find that is a big, big roadblock for the kids right now. Like you said, the shelves lined up. It's very, very hard for them. And I'm not always here to be able to say, this one's good, this one's not, or, so it would be really, really nice to have that. And the biggest thing is encouraging them to book talk it to their friends, or just even mention, hey, I read this series, it's really good, or I read this graphic novel and I really liked it. Because if they're hearing it from me, obviously I'm going to tell you all the books are good. If they're hearing it from their friends, it has much more impact for sure.
Thanks, Brandy, and I look forward to getting on an airplane, the flying librarian, to come and see you.
Yeah.
Judith.
Yes.
What do you think? How do you create the conditions in your library to connect students with books and stories?
First of all, we talk about everything. There are no taboo subject. If the student has a passion and interest in whatever, I buy the books. Like I even have a book on how to show your poultry at the fair to win a prize, or how to build furniture with snowshoes. Like if they have an interest, like I have a guy this morning, he came, he wanted a book on the Battle of the Bulge. I had a few, not exactly what he was looking for. So I did a research and I said, okay, stay with me. And we selected 3 books he wanted. And those are the books I ordered. And I said, are there on the other military books you like? And he said, but I would like to have more on the Battle of the Pacific during World War II. I said, fine, I'll do a research, I'll propose something, and you tell me which one you want. The same as I had some girls who were interested in Korea. So I bought Korean like cooking books, and Korean language to learn the language and things like that. Also, you see, in our manga section, we have if you like this series, you might like those series. And they're not in color now, but our section is growing. We have over 200 series of manga in English and about 15 in French. And our LGBTQ books, they're all identified like with the label on the side and like that. But because some people mentioned they are not comfortable, so we have some slip cover that you can put over the books. So but those are just a few samples, like a different size, so that because sometimes the kids might not be comfortable about what they're reading. Let's say you're a guy, you're a jock, and you want to read romance, as an example, or you're researching your identity and you want to kind of explore different genre, and you don't want your buddies to see it and mock you. Or if it's about like, dear diary, I'm pregnant. You want everybody to see it, or about sex ed, or whatever. It's not important, if you have an interest in something, we have to make sure that we provide it. And we do displays all the time. And the books that we put on display, they're always going out because we feature them in topics, in thematics and stuff like that. And because we open the books also on the table so that you can just flip through them. And no, it's really to have to kind of normalize that all subjects have an interest. I'm not here to judge your interest. I'm not here to tell you it's good or not. And I'm not here to censor you and not to tell you what age you are, because at 12 you can have the maturity of 16-year-old.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that, Judith, because each reader is different and they all have different preferences and different comfort
Yeah.
levels, and it's important to feel that we all
Mm.
belong. But how
Mhm.
about all of you? When you imagine yourself deeply immersed in reading and
Mm.
enjoyable stories, where are you and what are you reading? Do students have opportunities for engaged reading in your library? And if they are not reading, what are students doing in your libraries? So let's start off with Brandy.
I've developed a really good relationship with the high school teachers, and I'm known for being um, good at classroom management, good at managing a large group. So if there are kids, they come with a library hall pass, and if they're early finishers, they're allowed to come to the library and chill out. If I don't have a elementary class in here, the high school kids are allowed to come whenever they want. There's tables for them to sit. There's beanbag chairs. I have what I call the Gookum chair in the corner. It's a big wooden rocking chair, and that's kind of the prized place when they come in. If nobody's in it, they always want to sit there. And so they do have reading time in ELA at the beginning of each period, but they do like to come in here. And I'm always open during the 20-minute recesses that we have in a day. And I have my regulars that come in and plop down on
Can I ask
their.
you can I ask you about the noise level? How loud can it get in your space?
I'm not a shush librarian at all. There, as long as when I'm having a class, if I'm reading a story to a class that I have in elementary, the high school kids are allowed to come and go as they please. I keep a clipboard so they can write down their code so they don't have to scan out. And as long as they keep it respectful, I don't really have a noise level in here. Obviously, not
Because
to.
we do have to set some boundaries. One
Mhm.
of them is around food. And I want to also get back to Judith. Um, you had mentioned to me once about that we have to show students that we're friendly, but we're not your best buddy. But what
Yep.
kind of boundaries do you set in your library? And also, you can tell me about um, engaged reading for your students at your school. How often do they get sustained silent reading?
Okay, like the library, it's different than the other libraries because we have a bistro in the library. So at lunchtime, we have grosso modo like 10% of the school population that eats in the library. But there is a designated area, and this is where they can like chat with their friends or and kind of socialize and everything. And I'm the responsible adult. So I will be friendly, I'm welcoming, I'm open minded. But there is one rule on which I never negotiate, it's respect. So as soon as you set foot in the library, like you have to be respectful, not just to the adults, to every person, everything in the library. And when they are not like, they can misbehave, that's not the same thing. But if they hurt someone by either their action, their words, or whatever, like they get one warning, and the second one is bye bye, see you next year. It's not next week, it's not next month, it's next year. Because the library has to be a respectful, safe place for everyone from level 1 to level 5. You're a nerd, you're a jock, you're an art performer, you're a musician, you're nothing, but you're comfortable in the library. You have to know that every time you set foot in the library, that you will be treated with respect by everybody that is there. In the bistro, if you make a mess, I have a broom, I have a dustpan, I have paper towel, and I have garbage cans. You pick up after yourself. I'm not your mom and I'm not your maid. And this is a privilege that you have to be eating in the library because it doesn't happen in other schools. Sometimes they have a little corner, and we serve herbal teas for free at lunchtime. And we use real cups, real utensils, and everything. And so, like, collect empty cans and to pay for it because it's not part of the school budget, of course.
It
And
sounds it sounds as though there is a lot going on. Do students feel they can sit and read? Is it quiet enough
yes,
for some? Yes.
I have one corner. It's no talking allowed at all time. Even teachers are not allowed to talk there.
Mm.
And the way I explained it to them, I said, like, let's say you have a migraine. You don't want anybody to bother you. So you have to be able to go to that place. And we have couches. You can put your feet on the couches as long as your shoe stays on the floor.
Mhm.
So like it's kind of open, but at the same time with a few rules, but the students abide by them, you know.
It sounds
Uh-huh.
like it's a very welcoming space. Laura, I know
Mm.
you've had some challenges with food, but when the students are in your library, are they reading or what else are they doing?
So one of the issues with my library is I don't have that comfortable seating, and I really wish I did. I want sofas, I want chairs. They are older kids, so you do have to be careful with the public displays of affection, I suppose we could put it. If we do have those chairs and those sofas, you can't put them in the hidden spots. But so we are really tables and chairs. My administration, they support the library, but the school doesn't have a lot of places for the kids to hang out. So we have tables and chairs. How many kids can we fit in the library? At least 100. And in the wintertime in bad weather, it can be full with 100 kids. And they come. They come to hang out. They come to talk with their friends. Some of them read. They'll sit at the tables and they'll try to read. They'll come to do homework, to study, to work on the computers. And the thing that resonated with me with what Judith said is respect. And that's what I try to emphasize in my library as well, respect. So I do have to have those rules and those limits. I limit how many kids can sit around a table because I limit it to 6. There are really only 4 chairs around the table, so we're already pushing it with 6. And when they try to do 7, 8, 9, 10, that becomes a party. And that's not fair for the kid at the table next to them who maybe is trying to study or trying to decompress or trying to read. So I do try to have those rules. Yes, no eating in my library. They sneak it. They leave their crumbs. They leave their wrappers. They want me to know that they snuck their food in. Yeah, so
Finding the
they can't
balance.
play. Oh, it's
Uh,
so hard. They're not allowed to play games there's a lot of no, and I hate having all that no. No video games on the computers. Why? They can't control, they get excited.
Yep.
Kids get excited. They're teenagers. They get loud. They can't play, videos out loud on their phones. They have to use their speakers.
I'm going to
They
move
have
on. Oh,
Sure. No, I just
no,
wanted to
thank you,
say the
Laura.
last thing is that discipline is a big thing and it is exhausting. I want my teenagers in my library, but when you set those limits and you demand respect, you also have to discipline and you have to, make sure that they're respecting the rules. It can be exhausting, but I think it's worth it.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, Laura. The next question I have is going back to engaged reading. So lack of time is cited as one of the most common reasons teens choose not to read. Have your schools or libraries adopted any strategies to increase the amount of time students engage? And Judith, I'm going to start with you. Do you have some sustained silent reading programs in your school?
We used to, like for all like French and English class, they had a 20-minute reading after lunch in every single class, but it's not happening anymore because like the science teacher, math teacher, they didn't embark on the reading 20 minutes that was infringing on their time. So it stopped at some point. But I know that a few English teachers and French teachers still do it. And some of our challenge classes, the teacher always like read to students at the beginning of class with low lights and stuff to create a calming atmosphere for the students. So this is what they're doing. And I had last year we gave a certificate to one of our students because he read the 108 books of the One Piece series manga, and
Oh, that's nice.
it's part of one of those challenge classes. So we gave him an official certificate with a little keychain, One Piece, to acknowledge that he went through the whole series.
That's nice to have that recognition.
Yeah,
How about
yeah.
Laura? Do you have any drop everything and read or any other reading
Well,
programs?
there's nothing really as a whole school strategy, but our English teachers do drop everything and read. So they do schedule time for the students to come to the library. Students have to take a book, readers and non-readers alike. I let them take whatever they want. No judgment, as we say. Those non-readers who grab Diary of a Wimpy Kid, okay, they're comfortable with Diary of a Wimpy Kid. If they're going to read it, amazing, even if you're in grade 11. And Yeah, so I
want to
support the
show,
teachers with that.
yeah, we want to show that reading is supported, encouraged, normalized, and valued. And also, I feel like a part of my role is to try to change some attitudes towards reading. Brandy, you want to have any last word on that?
I one thing that I did want to mention about the drop everything and read is because we are in a K4 to Sec 5 school, we do every time we have a Christmas break, March break, anything like that, we always have an activity afternoon, and we take the K4 kids go and read with the Sec 5 kids. And that is always a hit. And you see them walking around the hallways, and you see them in little, corners somewhere, and the little kids with the big kids, it's always a big hit. So it kind of really encourages them to
Oh,
keep up with their reading even as they get older. It's really
that is
sweet.
a nice
Yeah,
aspect of a K to 11 school,
absolutely.
Sec 5
Mhm.
school. What are the most popular titles in your libraries right now? Does anybody want to comment? I have Brandy first on my list. What are
A
kids
lot of
reading?
a lot of series this year, which has been unusual. A lot of kids are following a lot of different series. The Scythe series is really good. The Fable series is really good. But obviously the graphic novel section is the most visited. A lot of pushback from a couple of teachers about it, that they would like them reading real books, which I will fight to the death on. And I think I'm probably like everybody online right now is if they're reading the words and they're absorbing a story, then they're reading. So a lot of graphic novels. And I don't ever, because my library is together with an elementary library, I will let them go and pick younger books, whether or not, it doesn't matter to me what you're reading as long as you're reading.
There are great picture books out there for the high
Absolutely.
school. Laura, what's popular in Laval at your high school right now?
I don't know that I could pick one, series. I would say as a genre, fantasy always leads the way with our students. The fantasy series and the Shatter Me series by Tahara Mafi, which is a dystopian series that is always popular. But by far the manga and the manhwa. And I didn't know anything about manhwa until a student asked me about it. And as Judith had said, he came to me, he asked me about it. We looked at it together, we chose titles, and I started buying it. And students have started noticing it, and they're really excited. So the manga, the manhwa, they just fly off my shelf.
I love hearing that, connecting with the student. He's going to remember that as he becomes a reader in his adult life. Judith, what's popular in your school?
Manga, graphic novel, of course, but also like in French, there is a series of books like Planet Soccer, Planet Snowboard, Planet Hockey. I bought like 4 or 5 copies of each, and then they have Planet Olympic. My level 1 and 2, the guys that are in sports concentration, like they're reading those like big time. And it's really their level, and the characters in the book are their age, so they recognize themselves in the stories. Also, a lot of cooking books, because we do a lot of food tasting. So, we promote like different cultures through cooking. And we have a project every month. We feature a country, and we had a food tasting on that country. Like yesterday, it was Brazil. So we had 3 different rice from Brazil. So that brings people in too.
That's really neat, Judith. I like that.
And you've got some volunteers helping with that, I hope.
Not the cooking, but we always have a teacher at the tea station to serve tea to the students. It creates a different rapport between teacher and students. It might be their student, their future students, their old students,
That's right.
but it showcases the teachers in a friendlier approach kind of things. And the kids are very polite, and they appreciate that the teacher chats with them, and they circulate, and they just like talk with them. They don't discipline, they don't
Absolutely.
ask about homework, they just talk about life in general. So that is a plus, a big plus.
It's super way to connect with teens, especially
Yeah.
in the library. I'm going to have to wrap it up soon. Believe it or not, our half hour is almost up. I know we're a little bit over time. I wanted to connect back to Erin's opening and talk about the developmental needs of adolescents and how they can connect, how we can look after these developmental needs in the school library. And I have 6 here, and I want you to pick which one stands out to you the most. So developmental needs in adolescent include number 1, testing out new ideas and experiences. Number 2, build decision making and emotional regulation skills. Number 3, develop values, goals, and identity. Number 4, support for mental and physical well-being. Number 5, feel competent and respected among peers. And number 6, support from caring adults in a safe space. For me, it's number 3, develop values, goals, and identity. I really love connecting with book characters and seeing how they reacted to different situations. And it really helped me develop who I was as a person. Can you tell me which one stands out for you, Brandy?
Number 6 definitely stands out. Support from caring adults in a safe space, especially after the pandemic. We're still feeling the effects of the pandemic, and have some of the kids who we don't know what they're living at home. We don't know what their issues are. They come to me. I have a knack for connecting with them, and you can come and talk to me about anything. And I always preface it by saying, I'm a librarian. I'm not a psychologist, but I can have the biggest ears and shoulders for you if you need them, and say whatever you need to say. And if you don't have anybody else to talk to, what a better place to do it than in a quiet area surrounded by books.
Oh, that's a great answer. Thank you, Brandy. Judith, which one stands out to you?
6 as well, but combined with 4, I think they go together, especially with teenagers, because like the roller coaster of emotion, the hormones, the everything, so they go hand in hand. And being a caring adult, when I see something is wrong, I call for referral from student services and I ask for somebody to come. But I always ask student first, like, would you like to talk to someone? Because I have to be respectful. I don't want to force it on them, but just let them know that the services are available. And we have like lots of stories. Like I remember one I read like a few years back, Luna. It's a Julian Peters LGBT trans book. And it's the story, the voice of the brother who wants to become a girl, and his little sister. So you have both voices, the two people in the story. So that connects a lot with like all the coming out, the secrecy, but also sharing the bond of siblings and stuff like that. And we do have those books in the library. And sometimes we say like, read that book, it might help you, like just to connect with the characters. So yeah.
Thank you, Judith. Laura, which one stood out for you?
Exactly like Judith, I was saying 4 and 6, they just go together. I just love that my library is a place that students want to go. When they're feeling anxious, they get a note from their teacher or from the guidance counselor, they can come hang out in the library. If they're injured, they can't do gym, they want to come and hang out in the library. So I'm not counseling them. Like Brandy, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, I'm a librarian. If they want to talk, I'll talk to them, but they know that there's no judgment and they can come and they can hang out and it is safe for them there.
We are excellent connectors, aren't we? Thank you all for this discussion. I hope you enjoyed it and that maybe will help school library staff across our beautiful province to take away some ideas on how to connect with the teens in their library. Thank you so much to all of you.
Thanks, Chelsea.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Our next QSLiN PD session, Enjoying the Library series, will be on May 14th from 9 o'clock to 10:15. As you can see, we went a bit over today. Our topic for May is animating library spaces, and we'll be looking at some of the other ways that we can promote engagement in our libraries. This session will be for both elementary and high school library staff, and we really hope you can join us.